Oh my God, I love this question. Thank you.
What is it?
Rocky. I know. Sylvester Stallone. I know it.
Everyone knows Sylvester Stallone.
No. What was it? The never. He said. No. He meant that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I will not put this together. Who was the original Manny Bryce? Barbara Streisand. Yeah. I'm pretty sure if I play one more game, Mr. Marcus is going to be
You're not very good.
Hey. Hey, you guessed Yale and I put in Harvard, okay?
He was messing with you.
And I knew it.
He was. You chose the wrong one.
It's like those people who didn't know what movie Arnold Schwarzenegger was very known for.
It's like,
Are you able to get the light, or do I need it?
I'll try.
Assassin's Creed style. Assassin's Creed.
No!
Lorraine, you nearly killed someone today.
You got, no, wait, don't touch it.
The top?
You gotta go a little more. It's actually just a twisting.
Okay.
One, there you go. And then, Dominic, can you get the lights off? Is it Apocalypse Lewis, por favor? Is that how you say it? Yeah! You know how I know that?
Apocalypse?
Take a guess.
Rosetta Stone.
No, because the Spanish teacher that I had, always, that was the only thing that I remember, because that's every single day. She said, Apocalypse Lewis, por favor. And I'm like, sí, señora. I know that word, maestro. Yeah, so she always told me, Apocalypse Lewis, por favor. I'm like, yes. I was like, I'm not por favor, I'm Justin. That's what I
You told me that.
No, I didn't. I make stuff up. Por favor, what is this?
How long did it
I'm
take
not
you to
poor,
Are you part of the Favor?
and I'm not from Favor.
What is that?
Favor.
All right, guys, get those packets out. Continuing those notes from yesterday. Got to finish up the Northern Renaissance to get caught up here. Now, just a heads up, tomorrow you're going to be getting your non-Western project packets for the next week. So you'll be getting them, and you'll have a 1 week turnaround for those. So next Friday we'll be doing those non-Western projects. So just heads up. Do need to get back into those as we get closer to that AP test. Trying to think if there's any other announcements we can do around that. Okay, that's good. We left off in this very wonderful work in which the Garden of Earthly Delights shows all sorts of interesting detail. Fantasy detail, biomorphic elements, and butt flowers. At least a few of them. So, hopefully you explored the work on your own, enjoyed all the little sensual details. If not, do it. It's interesting.
Wow.
Yes? Shadows? Yeah, there are some darker figures. I don't think they're shadows. They're just different colored skins. There's two whole black people in the work. It was Germany, so they don't have a whole lot of black people there, I suppose. So that happened. Was that Ashley?
That was a scam.
Ashley? Oh, that was a scam. Oh, okay. Okay, that's even funnier, actually. I know, isn't it terrible? We need to have more black people in Germany. During the Middle Ages.
During the Middle Ages, but what happened?
Yeah. Speaking of really white people, let's look at a dead Jesus again.
Oh, he's like not even as pale as the lady on the floor right there, and he's dead.
She's very pale. And the Northern Renaissance guys are going to be pretty darn pale. Remember, Italy's always got that nice suntan. In the north, everyone's going to be super white. Okay, it's like you can see the veins on me. This is an altar piece, an altar panel So an altarpiece would be something that goes in the front or the back of the church. Well, it depends on where you're looking, I suppose. But if you're going in, it would be behind you or in front of you. It'd be in front of you. So however you want to describe that, I suppose. But it's supposed to be where the ceremony happens. And so just a reminder of those kinds of things. Triptychs are 3-paneled altar pieces. Diptychs are how many paneled? 2. And then you would just say an altar piece like this. It's called the Ghent, or excuse me, the deposition. I think this is deposition, just called deposition. It's a center panel of a triptych. So it's the Wite. I think it's the Ghent altarpiece, but someone need to double check that. It's G-H-E-N-T altarpiece, the Ghent altarpiece. Roger van der Weyden is an artist that is producing an interesting sort of parallel between two gestures, and that's sort of why this work gets in the book. It's a good example of the Northern Renaissance religious iconography. That we're using sort of traditional elements of narrative to describe Jesus' deposition, that is his removal from the cross, and that he is in fact centered, so it's not like the Mannerist depositions that we saw in which he's sort of floating, outside of the emphasis zone, and that there's these awkward negative spaces. But at the same time, so it's not Gothic in the sense that we are actually producing weight to our figures. Our figures have a stronger sense of chiaroscuro and shadowing. And so we call this Renaissance, Northern Renaissance. Now, what is the parallel between the body of Jesus and Mary? How would you describe that parallel?
Oh, jeez.
Do you notice it, or am I just sort of making something different? Ben?
They both look a little dead in a way.
Yeah, and in particular, can people die in multiple gestures? Why in this sort of parallel way? Yes.
Oh, the hands, they're like...
Okay, so both their hands are sort of in a flayed, open state.
They're both equal.
And there's ultimately a sense of equality to their suffering, isn't there? The way that their whole body, their torso is slanted, she's being lowered to the ground as he's being lowered to the ground, and they're feeling each other's what? Pain. Mother and son. So this is a Catholic work or a Reformation work? Could you take a guess?
Reformation.
No.
Reformation.
This would be Catholic. Now, why Catholic?
Because the Catholics believe that Mary was just a...
You really gotta get that down. The idea of the Reformation, I'll go back to it again just one last time. But you guys are at a disadvantage for not having a world history class. So you need to be restudying this time period because it's very important and it's emphasized on the art history test. That there is a division between Catholic and Protestant that will be occurring, not yet, but in about 70 years. There's already some precursor rumblings with John Huss and John Wycliffe up in England and Czech, the eastern areas, respectively. Actually reversed. And those people are predecessors to Luther who will divide the church. Right now it's very Catholic. And they've developed a Marian teaching that is a doctrine in which Mary is the same as Jesus in many respects. Not that he's the same in terms of mediating to the Father. But it goes Father to the Son, and then you would be somewhere down here, like where the skull is, I suppose. Using Mary or having Mary as one of your advocates to the Father that you venerate. She is sinless, and she was assumed into heaven, much like who? Jesus himself. Yes?
Okay, I don't know if this is important.
Sure.
But the lady above Mary in the green dress and turban, she has a cross in the middle of her stomach, like her strings
Yes.
are shaped like a cross.
And this is actually a good question. Not that particular detail, because that's more of a accidental to the fashion. But I do want to bring you to the fashion. What do you notice about their fashion, or their dress, their garb? Yes.
They're all wearing a headdress.
Okay, they're all wearing headdresses. But more specific to that, what kind of fashion do you think this is? Is this historically accurate? Is this what Palestinian Jews would be wearing?
It's anachronistic.
This is anachronistic. I want you to remember that word. That word means that they remove the context, the original historical context of the work, and place it into modern times. It would be like Jesus dressed as Jesse here. Jesse, can you come forward? This would be Jesus right here. If he can even have a little beard. But it'd be like if Jesus wore something like this, or something that you're wearing right now. It would be changing the context of Jesus to fit a time period. So what we're seeing here is actually the accurate dress of people during the day in different respects. You got priests, you got Jewish, sort of Renaissance Jewish community, and other folks that are in their sort of best Renaissance attire, bishops, priests, and otherwise. So just know that all of this here, and nuns, notice the nuns, these are all people that aren't in the original story. They're just, it's like taking the fashion of the Renaissance, the Northern Renaissance, and pushing it onto early, ancient peoples. So just be aware that even Mary herself is sort of a nursing kind of nurse nun type, maiden type nun. Excuse me?
She's very pale, like really, really pale.
And again, that idea of being very pale and white is part of the so the porcelain beauty of the characters up in the north because of their obvious sort of ethnic preferences. Now, another area that I want to draw your attention, I think I have it zoomed in here. Let me just see if I can zoom in. Oh, there you go. This is the woman on the side here. So remember this section. And then I want you to look at how much detail is produced in just maybe a few centimeters. That Northern Renaissance, a general principle, maybe a characteristic you'd put on the front of your packet, okay, that you should be filling out, would be something like extreme detail or attention to detail, realistic detail. This is a way for them, much like the tracery, the Horovacui of Hiberno-Saxon communities in the 4th and 5th century of Christianity in Upper Europe. This is a way for them to devote themselves to God through detail, through painting detail. So all these little movements in the oil paint itself is producing that detail that reminds them that God knows everything. God's omnipotent. So all of these elements here are part of the worship of God, the attention to detail in the work. So along with that then is a certain level of observation. And this is a precursor, once again, to someone like Leonardo da Vinci, who's also doing observation and will be introducing Northern Renaissance principles to the Italian Renaissance to come. Even the cuticle and these kinds of... There's certain elements that make it a little bit flat with the tonality of the work, but ultimately there's a nice sense of chiaroscuro to the work. You got a coarse shadow here, you got it blended nicely because of the oil paint quality. Shh, Justin. And then you also have these dripping sort of wet. Well, how do you make a drop of water with paint? With opaque. Something to do with shading, right? So shading inside of the orb of water.
No, around, because you use whites to show reflection.
You have that highlight, which is a type of reflection, very good of the light source. So they all have to be consistent. If you notice, they all are, and this one's even a little higher because it's lower in the plane. So there's some sort of light source right here that they're implying. And then the rest of it ultimately has to be a very subtle gesturing of the same what? How do you create that? How do you create that? Yeah, but how do you create that? Maybe with a little bit of gloss and make it glossier than everything else? You could. You could add a little bit of linseed oil or something to make it a little bit wetter looking. Yes?
You maybe shade it, leave a little bit unshaded, and blend it with your finger.
So you might take a little bit of shade here and then a little blending here with the white, not with your finger, but maybe with a very thin brush or even just a single hair. And you take the lines that are next to it and you continue them through the place to make it look, what?
3D.
Translucent. I'm saying 3D, kind of. There's a different way to do that. And then you said realistic. But there needs to be a transparency. But you're using oil paints. Are oil paints translucent? No. So they're not translucent. They're very opaque. They're thick. Think about an oil-based, like blue or something. It's thick. It's not like watercolor. Is watercolor translucent or opaque? It's mostly translucent. You can see through it. You build up your layers from light to dark. From oil paints, you can go from dark to light. You can paint your whole canvas black if you wanted, and then on top of that, pull up your highlights. Can you do that with oil paints, you think? Can you literally put a bunch of watercolor? Can you do that with watercolor? You do your whole canvas, you do your whole watercolor paper like a dark blue watercolor, and then can you pull up highlights after that? You could, but you're now using opaque. You're not using the watercolor correctly. All the whites in a watercolor is the paper, right, behind it. So just kind of a thought on how color works. Along with that is that little bit of line here gets distorted, and this goes to Ashley's point about it being three-dimensional. How do you do that? You distort some of the lines in there. You have the color about the same as the color next to it, so the color on the outside. So most of it is, you're not even touching it. You're just maybe adding a little bit of inside of it to create that sense of distortion, the convex quality, or the concave quality, and then a little bit of, like what Justin said, is shadow. This shadow goes a little bit too high, so it looks like it's really popping off of her eye. Does that make sense? You see it kind of looking like it's like squirting out, as opposed to laying on her face. These ones are a little bit more naturalized, but I like this one in part because it's a continuation. Do you notice how this kind of continues up? Even though there's nothing on this side, you can just see it here.
I just noticed that.
And to create something realistic, it's a very simple thing to do. You can do it right now on your paper. What I want you to do is just, I want you to draw a really small square and just the empty spot on the left side of your Cornell notes, not where the lines are, right? So just a small square. It can be any, size you want. I don't care. But then I want you to choose one side to be where your core shadow is, one corner to be the core shadow, and one corner to be where your sort of highlight would be. So if I were to draw, let's draw it on this side here real quick. And you can listen to my voice and just listen to the directions if you can't see what I'm doing. On one side, I just want to create like maybe an extra shadow. So just choose a corner in which you're going to create your shadow. On the other corner, so the upper corner maybe, or the lower corner, depending on where you want it to be, I've chosen my lower corner, my lower right corner, to make a nice thick line. Okay? So this is going to become my core shadow. Then what I'm going to do is on the top here, and you're going to be able to do it better with your pen or pencil, I want you to just sort of make the area around the square just a subtle gray. Sort of blend maybe just a little bit, but don't do a thick core shadow around your square. I want to eventually make the lines disappear. So what you'll eventually be doing is just kind of having, I'm going to create a cross-hatching. So if you have a pen and you can't do that kind of gradient work, you can do a cross-hatching like me and do the same thing. I'm going to do a quick little cross-hatch to give a sense of a gradient of color, not something thick. After you complete that, I want you to erase the top two lines of your square. So just kind of make them disappear. Now take a look at what you just produced. You have a core shadow in the bottom corner, and in the top corner you should have no longer a line. If you couldn't get rid of the line because you have a pen or something, make the cross-hatching so close to that line to where it just sort of blends with your cross-hatching. So I don't want to see that line at all. And that might require you to make your cross-hatching a little darker. And if you have a pencil, it makes it a little bit easier because you can just use your eraser. Now, Dominic, can you flip the lights on for people to see? There's my real quick thing. Now, do you see what I've sort of done here? And you can see how it's different than if I were, let me put a square right next to it. Now, what happens when I have, there's that, and then there's just your square, right? Your geometric shape. Your geometric rectangular object. Now, what's the difference in the way that those look to your eye?
One is more blended in and has that sense of, you just said it.
Sense of what?
Like, not 3D, not 3D. I just said it.
Translucence.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, what do you mean translucent? They're both translucent.
Because
They both don't have any color in the center.
the one looks really thick on one side.
Okay. What does it do? Because I asked you to change. I asked you to remove the lines. What did that do to your work, Jack?
It's like when you see the square over there on the right, it kind of seems like the shape is implied, but on the one on the left, the shape is not really implied, but at the same time it's there.
It's more explicit on the right, you mean, right? Or you're saying it's there. That it's there. It looks more there, whereas you're saying that the shape is more implied on the left. Okay, good. You're getting in the right direction. Yes.
It gives it like space,
Okay, it's giving it a sense of space.
like it's more towards you rather than actually touching it.
Okay, so it's feeling like it might be lifting off a little bit from the, which one looks maybe more three-dimensional? Actually, you didn't have it wrong when you thought that. Which one looks more three-dimensional? Like it's dealing with a space with shadowing? There's one that does and one that looks flat. When you have outlines in your drawing, or when you see outlines in characters, that makes the work look flat. When you realize that there are no black outlines around anybody that you see or anything that you see, and you realize all you're doing is looking at edges of color, of like edges and shapes of color, including your negative space, the thing around your object also has color. Look at each one of you or any object in the classroom. There's no black outline around any feature. It's all shades and edges. Even the painting in the background behind me, you would also have to paint as an edge to my face. So when you paint, you have to consider the fact that you can't just outline the shape. You have to consider where's the shadow around it and how does this edge meet to another edge. Once you get that very basic thing, drawing and painting open up to you in ways you didn't realize. You start looking at the world like it really is and not like how your brain wants to interpret it. Your brain wants to flatten it and make it easy for you to draw like a cave painting. You got to overcome that and learn how your eye actually perceives the world. Dominic, lights off, please. Once you can do that, you can do what the Northern Renaissance masters do, and that is paint teardrops and other types of strange perceptions of reality. If I were to ask you this sort of question, it's a really difficult one. Regarding the formation of the Baroque period, what three elements, one religious, artistic, and philosophical, contribute to the departure from Renaissance ideals? What I want you to consider with this question is how it is that we will move from the Renaissance now towards the next movement. Because it seems like the Renaissance is sort of the epitome of art, and yet there's going to be much more movement in the direction of realism, in the mastery of the techniques and forms, and the increasing theatricality of the works, in part as a result of the Reformation. So that's an interesting thing just to consider when we get to it. Still in the Northern Renaissance, though, we have the Eisenheim altarpiece, which is, again, what type of altarpiece? It's not the Gent or the Ghent altarpiece. That was different. This is the Eisenheim altarpiece. What type of altarpiece is this? Diptych. Is this a diptych? How many panels do I have? There's three. So I have a triptych. Now, I know that looks maybe like one in the middle, and you might be justified thinking it folds in the center, but it doesn't. This actually folds in. If you notice, it folds right here, and then that side would swing and fold close there. Now, why would you have a triptych, some type of altarpiece that opens and closes like this? Yes?
Multiple reasons. If for home worship, or like when you're by yourself to worship on special days.
Oh, good.
I read this.
Perfect, I know.
People have this to open up on certain days and certain religious days, and they would open it, worship it. And
Write that down. Justin's got it.
Got it.
You guys are all excited. Yeah, good job. No, that's good. And he read in the Barons too, because that's exactly the right answer. Triptychs are open during festivals, during special days of worship. They're closed during the weekly prayer services and that sort of thing, but it's open, on Sundays when you have high service where you actually do your communion and that sort of thing. And so they all depict different scenes. Some scenes are more humble than others. When you open it up, it usually shows something greater than the ones closed. So there's more of a humble scene, and then an open like, oh, and you open it up, That's how it sounds when you open it, by the way. It always makes that sound. Pretty ingenious how they created that. It's like an early birthday card. You know those cards that have the
Yeah.
happy birthday to you. It's like a stupid cat or something. They did that back in there. Write it down. They did that. They open it up and it'd be like these angel sounds. Oh! It was all the little digital microchip that they were able to create. Don't write that down. What's wrong with you? If you wrote that down just now, you're done. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I told you all to write it down, and you're like, I don't know how that's true, but all right. See, I appealed to the authority. I dress nice, and you just listen to me no matter what I say. I lie to you all the time. You don't even know.
Wait,
You lied to us all.
So really, they didn't have sound. That was impossible at the time. There was no microchips.
Bro, they did.
Please write underneath, Mr. Morris is a liar. I am not dumb. Morris is a liar.
It actually is true, but they didn't have
You have to pay attention. That's the point of that.
All
right.
That was my parable for today. He who writes down dumb things needs to listen better. No, I don't know.
Said by
More
Mr.
like he who
Morris.
teaches students needs to watch his tongue. Okay. In the middle here we have what scene?
Mary giving birth.
You got the nativity. This is the Christmassy stuff, right? And she's, the God is sort of going, yeah. And then you have all these characters here that are sort of the multitude of the heavenly hosts with her. You have Mary doing all her cool stuff like praying, and Jesus doing real cool stuff like what? What'd you say? He's doing real cool stuff like fireballs. He's like, I am the Human Torch. Fantastic Four, unite! Yes, he is the Human Torch.
Earth.
Literally, he is the sun. That's what that is. He's sort of brilliantly shining as he's popping out of the tomb going, what's up?
No, he's creating Earth.
I beat it.
The
No,
red is
he's,
representing the fire, and the blue is
it's his resurrection, yes. I'll slap you and beat you at your friend. Okay. Huh? No, it doesn't.
Buy me teachers $2.
Bro,
gotta
he's like
pay.
doing the Beyonce dance. He's like, don't even touch me. I'm too close.
Shut your mouth. Shh. I got 4 things.
Okay,
So the Eisenheim altarpiece is important because the actual church itself was a hospital. And this is a time period in which Black Plague and Black Death and all that bubonic nonsense is coming around and around. So there are some interesting elements. If you remember this work, do you remember this work when we talked about violence or religion and that sort of thing? So you have the resurrection on the inside panel that you'd open for festival days. You see the guards are going, what the heck's going on? And Jesus, and he's got the Human Torch. He's showing his hands out. He looks almost alien in his whiteness and coolness. Okay, this is this triumphal thing. I love the flowing, almost feathery, flowery kind of element there. Certainly symbolic of his resurrection and opening flower. But on the outside, when it's closed, usually when it's being used as a ward to sick people, they're looking at this. Because this is more important. This is Jesus on the cross. And the attention to detail that's so characteristic of the Northern Renaissance, an almost gory kind of application. Jesus, as you notice here, has a skin disease. He basically has a form of bubonic plague. And so they're actually being anachronistic with even his suffering. Now, why would you do that if it's a hospital during the 15th century? Dominic.
So the people know that they'll end up like him, and they'll be with him.
Yeah, so when you think of, and probably more immediate than that, to think about my suffering is to think about who's suffering. Jesus took on my infirmities. There's passages in the Old Testament that sort of prophesy on that. So Jesus is always depicted with sort of modern ailments. He has bubonic plague, he has leprosy, he has all these other things, because on the cross he takes your infirmities both symbolically and, I guess, literally, because he's really, really hurting you. There's his arms and legs, there's that nail right there, and his feet all gross. Look at those. They're like ripped up and shredded. Ugh. Okay, this is a lot of attention to detail. Someone spent a lot of time producing a torturous work. You guys are all laughing and enjoying yourselves. I'm talking about Jesus on the cross. How dare you? You guys are like, yeah, so what are you doing later? Oh my gosh. And I'm like, Jesus is torturing. Being tortured. You guys are like, not appropriate. I don't know. I guess it is a church. You can do what you want. But You got to know about the bubonic plague on Jesus there. All right.
His hair?
We're gonna not do that right now. You're like, whoo! I have all these things that I put in these interesting timed rights. They always come out of order now as we go through it more organically.
It's baseball.
This guy's name is Johannes Gutenberg. Gutenberg is
German.
the most important of your inventors in the Northern Renaissance. So he's an important artist of note, in part because he is the one who allows for the art of the North to disperse throughout the whole region, including down into the south. And it's with the Gutenberg printing press that we see a surgence of literacy and accessibility of information. Again, I think I've said this before, but we take such for granted the books that we have. Now we have digital libraries, the gigabytes and gigabytes. You can have the entire world collection of literature on a memory card. My USB stick right there, that little silver thing, could have all the world's library on it. It's not very hard to create a text file. It doesn't take that much to have the words and information. Yet,
Still keep it attached to your head.
Yes, and I can have the entire world's. Now imagine the difference. Shh. Yeah. No, yes, I do. No thanks to you. I'll never let you touch the keys again. No, that was my fault. Shush, Lorraine. The whole world's collection of literature can happen in a tiny little piece of hardware now. But imagine the scriptoriums of people, that hundreds and thousands of monks and people having to, by candlelight or by some other type of dark, community in a cell, have to sit and listen to one person read it out loud while everyone else copies. That's how libraries were made before this guy. Movable type kind of worked a little bit. You could kind of hit newspapers, but this guy was able to create a movable type with a conveyor belt and connect them together and literally churn out the same thing for you to read, not just to listen to on Sunday. Now, this is important for all sorts of reasons, not only for art, with people like Albrecht Dürer, who's going to do line drawings and then do these etchings and then use the printing press to so everyone can see his work, even if they don't go to see the painting itself or the Eisenheim altarpiece and whatever. You can actually see someone else's work from miles away, never having to go to it, because the work just sort of litters the ground now.
And that is where we became lazy.
And that's in part why, we don't care so much about literature, because it seems to just be silent on that. We take for granted that there's more information in this one donated bookcase than maybe the Alexandrian library, and it's all its glory, all its ancient splendor. Gutenberg, the 14th century here, and 15th century, saw most of that century. German blacksmith, he was a goldsmith, and then also an innovator, he's a publisher and printer. He's the one that invents the movable type printing, and then from there is going to take that and churn it out in sort of a conveyor belt-like efficiency. It's a big press that you down, and then you're able to and keep doing this. And if you have a system that works it for you, you can do it very fast and just move it through. He plays the key role in the Renaissance because of that kind of dispersal of art. Also in the Reformation, because if you're trying to go against the Catholic Church, everyone's Catholic, how do you convince them otherwise? Well, you use the printing press to tell people your ideas. And now everyone can hear your dissent from the Pope. The Pope has the authority, but you have the dispersal of information, especially when you're up in the north and the Pope isn't. Age of Enlightenment and Scientific Revolution. How might it help the Scientific Revolution have a printing press? Everyone believes that the earth revolves around the sun revolves around the earth. How do you tell people the difference? How do you persuade them? Yes?
People, now they can communicate with each other and exchange their ideas.
Early social media, guys. This was the Twitter, this was the Instagram of the day. It changed the way people talk to each other. I didn't have to go to some smart person symposium. I could look at the information myself. And so someone like Copernicus or Kepler can show people their planetary motion treatise or their 95 Theses against the Catholic Church, and I could decide for myself. And it's that democratization of information, like that word, democratization. Like everyone has it, the demos, the people. allows for this sort of knowledge-based economy. I can now choose who and what and how I spend my money because I'm not implicitly beholden to as much authority. Now, one of the works that gets produced here is this artwork from the 1480s by Schongauer. It's called The Temptation of St. Anthony, very religious work. But notice it's an etching. This isn't a drawing. It's not an ink drawing. What is an etching?
It's with your pencil and you sketch it and you etch it and you.
No, it's not. It's not with a pencil.
With a pen.
It's not a pen. It's getting closer when you start saying the word engraving. What is it?
Carving.
Huh?
Quill.
A quill? No, it's not a quill.
Coal.
It's not one of those fancy pens. That's still a pen and ink.
You engrave it.
If I were to make this a pen and ink, what could I do with it? I could display it for other people to see. But this work would have been reprinted over and over again. How do I do that?
Oh, you
Yes.
on the. It's like because you like put it, you send it to the other people. You carve it on the
I think Mauricio and Justin are saying the same thing. Justin, what are you saying? You're like making a motion.
stamp.
Yeah, I know. I said Justin and Mauricio.
Oh, well, you played it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whatever. Shh, it's okay. It's not a list of chronology or anything. It's anachronistic. Okay. What'd you say?
It's a stamp.
It's a stamp. Etchings are stamps. What you don't see with this work, some of you are just sort of sitting there. I'm hoping that you're writing down some of this stuff here. Etchings are wood cuts. They're wood blocks. So you start with a big panel of wood, a plank, and you take an awl, which is a type of needle, sharp knife. And you take a chisel, like a hammer chisel. Hammer and a chisel maybe too. And the awl is a really thin knife. And you etch. You etch away all of the areas that you don't want the ink to well. So that means that all this around the black has been pulled away. This is a use of negative space. So basically he's producing all the negative space, chiseling away all the negative space in the work, so that when you roll the ink, or the ink gets rolled on, it only touches the surface that you want to make your line. Then that becomes the stamp, just like any stamp that you've seen, or like your old teachers in elementary school. Good job, Johnny, with the apple with the worm sticking out. Miss Becky still does that. So just like Miss Beckius and Miss Gillum, I don't do that. I don't know why. Maybe it's a guy thing I don't like. Come around like, good job. I don't know. Maybe I should. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? When you have a stamp on something. Cassie's like, yeah, all right. I know. I love it. I loved it too. I was like, yes. My geometry teacher did that. I think you might.
Yeah, my geometry.
Miss Holman, she did that.
Oh.
I had Miss Holman. Yeah. I had all these teachers. I know all of them. I don't know Becky's. I know that my wife had Miss Becky's. I had, who else do you have? I didn't have Miss Hancock.
Gillum.
I had some weird teacher that was like really just a football coach. So we literally watched Jackass every Friday. It's like literally we watched Jackass. Like he thought it was like Fun Friday, so it was like every day was Fun Friday. It's not like that class. No, it was a guy that he's not teaching here anymore, obviously, because he's really weird. Then after that, I had Miss Lawley, which you don't know, she teaches at Lakeside, very good. Then I had Miss Lofquist. So she was a newer teacher. She's over there, and she's still over there. You'll have her junior year. And then I had Miss Williams, and then she's also over there next to Miss Lofquist. So I've had all your teachers. I know your teachers. I've had Holman. I had Redmond. I had Ren. Loved Ren. Oh my God. He's like my favorite teacher. Guys.
Whoa.
You should talk about
My brother said that. He loves his brother.
Yeah. Like my son works at NASA.
It's yours.
And
Wait, it's
the first date with his wife.
Who did you have for science?
Yes, it did. Now, shut up, everyone. Okay.
Who did you have for science?
You and your tangents. Shame on all of you.
Why would you do
You get the idea of the etching. Okay.
No.
The pulling of all these weird characters is there like this puffer fish looking guy. St. Anthony was a Coptic Christian that's from Egypt, and he actually is an Aromatic monk. So he was a guy who ran off and did his own thing, and he got tempted with lust, and these are all representations of his temptation for lust. It's very much a teenage theme right there. You're all pulled in the wrong directions, and you should be on the narrow path, just like St. Anthony. But the work here is, the more important thing is the medium by which it's produced. It's a work that's highly distributed and easily distributed. So that's Schongauer and his dry point etching. Now, the person who makes this famous, in part because he copyrights his own work for the first time, the first type of copyright, and immediately after you copyright something, you got to sue somebody. So once you copyright it, you got to sue someone who copies it. So that's what a copyright is. You got to make money off of people who are jacking your style. That guy's name is Albert Dürer. Now, Albert Dürer was a businessman. Do you guys know who Thomas Kincaid was?
No.
Unfortunately, he died of a heart attack, like maybe a few years back. But he had a very strong talent. But more than his talent, which most art historians and people, sort of art critics, you wouldn't see his stuff in modern art museums in the same way. His work was very commercialized. He wanted to sort of produce a work that sold and made money. Thomas Kincaid was a brand name. It wasn't just an artist. Now, his predecessor comes out of the Northern Renaissance. Dürer was a businessman. He was someone who was making money. He was a brand name. Dürer, it would be like the same as Nike. Okay? So think about Dürer in that regard, and it'll make a lot of sense. For instance, with this work here, it looks like a portrait of who? Jesus, right? Now, you would think so, but this is actually a self-portrait of who?
Albert.
Albert Dürer. This is Dürer's version of Jesus himself. And he's doing this on purpose in two ways. He's saying, look guys, I can do religious works. I'm really good with oil paints, and this is my face. So remember who I am. So this is all three of those things in one. Brand name. Notice here too, he's got his little calling card right here.
Look at that
The
shit.
A and the D underneath it, little stylized thing.
1800?
He loved himself, man. The A and the D super like stylized. Dürer, baby. What's up?
I found the Gentile piece and it's not It's
Oh, Van Dyne. Yeah.
Isn't
I'm
it
wrong.
Ben?
John Van Dyke.
John Van Dyke did the Ghent. I apologize. Put plus 500 paper for finding that. The Ghent altar piece is not the same as the Roger Van Dyne that we looked at. I'm not sure what the name of that one is. Dürer does his own branding there, and that's his wonderful oil paints. Now, how does he discover how to do oil paints? Well, he goes to Venice and he meets with a guy named Titian. Now, what is Titian all about? Where does he come out of?
The Italian.
Not the Italian Renaissance like a Michelangelo, but a North Italian what? Realism.
He did didn't he do the painting with the one single light? He told us the name for the higher chiaroscuro.
That's right. So North Italian realist Titian, and he brings the techniques back to Nuremberg, Germany. So he's learning from the North Italian realists. Jan van Eyck teaches Da Vinci, or has oil paint started with Da Vinci. Da Vinci eventually sets the stage for the High Renaissance and observation. Michelangelo does his Neoplatonic frescoing. And before we know it, Titian is now borrowing from late Renaissance, from Michelangelo, turning it into North Italian realism, and then it's coming back full circle to help with Albert Dürer in the sort of same kind of time period. So Albert Dürer, working around the same time period as Titian, then uses the work here in 1494 to bring back to Nuremberg. So this is an interesting kind of cycle of what's going on in the north versus the south of Italy, and then also the north and south of Europe. He starts off with a series of watercolors that look like this, very abstract. And this is what I was talking about with watercolor being translucent or transparent. All the white on here is the original paper, and then you slowly build your color with the lightest first, and then getting darker and darker and darker, probably in some sort of spiral type way. And the work has got a natural rhythm that moves inward. There's no clear patterns, it's just natural rhythmic movement of the landscape, but it's observation. And watercolor is the main way in which you go outside and you paint. Acrylics haven't been made yet, and easels aren't really used, especially telescopic easels. Those are going to happen in the next couple centuries. Here's a drawing from Albert Dürer, though, with watercolor elements. It's beautiful.
The AD.
This is anatomical drawing at its finest. So some of these works are, check this out. This could be modern. It could be something in your house. Right? This work here has got some wonderful outlining and detail with the inside and out. Very hyper-realistic. It'd be a photograph. So both of these works are showing his skill, and boy was he good. And that's why he could sell himself. He made a lot of money. His work that made the most money, though, was his series of etchings. Because
Now you see me.
he literally goes through... Excuse me?
The Four Horsemen, that's what they call themselves, and now you see me. I wonder if this is an illusion.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. What? It's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie.
Magic shows and magic tricks. And they
Oh,
call
okay.
themselves the Horsemen.
Yeah, okay. Well, the four horsemen is a biblical allusion. It's in Revelation. So it's the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I don't know if you want to be called the four horsemen unless you're being someone like kind of intense.
They are intense.
Okay, so it means that you're bringing the destruction of the whole universe. Okay.
Precisely.
According to Christian sort of eschatology, it's a fancy way of saying end times. All these characters here represent different disease and plague, yada yada. But de Rare is interested in etchings from the whole Bible. And this one particularly is interesting because of its sort of flamboyant, symbolic meaning. All the characters here are pulled out of Revelation and give us a strong sense of all the actual sort of, symbolic nature of Revelation. You got the pestilence, you got the war, you got the archery kind of guy, the dude that's like the red, black, I think it's red, black, green, and pale white or something like that. Sort of all representing different compositions of war. But you notice his use of the etching to create the background element, the midground, and the foreground elements. There's about 4 different layers here. There's the front layer, then there's the top layer that's sort of behind them, but almost at the parallel axes, the y-axis. And then behind them, in the depth, is the clouds, and then the far away, it gets darker this way so that it juxtaposes with the clouds. The line quality is horizontal or linear or vertical. Very horizontal. Notice all these etching lines go this way, almost like a printer would when it's running out of ink. And this is all part of him creating, if he gets the lines lighter and darker or thinner or closer, this etching quality, and we call this hatching, so know that term, hatching. When you have lines very close to each other, you create thicker hatching, and it makes darker etchings. So the closer the etching, the closer the hatching, the darker it is, to the point where it literally is a core shadow in some of these areas here. That way you can create really thick lines around the objects, but you can also produce a line quality that changes and makes it three-dimensional. How do I, again, get rid of my outlines? I use edges of color. In this case, I use edges of hatching, just like I did on the board here. When I work with a permanent thing like watercolor, or like this here, not like watercolor, because you can blend it out and do translucent, but like etching or like points, linear objects that I put down, I have to use hatching. Now, those of you who use pencil, you could smear it, and that allowed you to create dynamic range in a different way. But hatching requires this kind of really intense, close quality work here. And again, like I said, he has it for every single section of the Bible practically. He had a whole book of it, and this was how he made money, producing these for people to have in their homes. The printing press made his work cheap and widely dispersed, and then patrons would want original works from him, and so he made lots of money that way. Out of de Rare, 1504.
Awkward-looking cat or really fat squirrel.
Notice the similarities with his work and differences between this and Michelangelo's. The characters are still pretty muscular, but there's certain different proportions here. More Lysippin than Polycleton, I suppose. Character's a little bit skinnier in the legs. He skipped leg day. Get that? He skipped leg day. We got 8 minutes left. Should we do a timer?
No. That's it? That's it for your presentation on Roman Renaissance?
Lorraine,
I'm just, you make a big deal out of it.
This is the video.
Well, those are what I do.
I barely have enough notes. This is just enough to fill the first page.
But the appearance, bro, it might just give us hopefully it feels like just an hour.
Yeah, we do have enough time. We got 7 minutes.
No time,
Especially
right?
since Lorraine's like, that's it. I don't have enough time.
All right, Lorraine, be quiet.
I'm not even talking. It's y'all like,
Lorraine, Lorraine.
It's not Lorraine's fault that
Wait, with no
No, wait, I have a question.
Oh, Beatrice.
So you have a question. Yes.
Guys,
Yes, Beatrice.
hold on, let me make up a really long story.
Shut up, Nice try. I thought
No!
Oh my god!
I'm not doing it.
No, wait, for real.
No.
Wait.
Okay, guys, you got 6 minutes right now. You're gonna map it,
Oh my god.
and then all I want is a thesis statement after you map it. That's all I want. Okay.
I'm putting
5
this in my
minutes.
notes. I'm putting this in my notes.
Can we
Where's
please
my
my
notes? On my notes.
Yes.
I'm the teachee. Dominic,
I'm the
flip it up. Yeah, it can be in your notes. That's fine. Now you do need to supplement the notes with a bit from the chapter as well. So just a heads up on that. Tomorrow we'll be in the computer lab doing a thematic unit, so we'll get that as well. Family. And by the way, speaking of family, looking at women here, cultural attitudes about women are often revealed in art. Select and fully identify 2 works of art that depict 1 or more women. The works must come from 2 different cultures, one of which must be from beyond the European tradition. I'm going to go ahead and strike that. You can do it from any cultures. Okay, so I'm not going to require that. That's from the original question. Explain how each work reveals its culture's attitude about women. This was a 10-minute question. I'm going to give you 6 minutes just to do a thesis and a map. That's plenty of time. Most of the time you need to have 2 paragraphs out. Okay, go. 6 minutes. Dominic, you want your lights on? That way we can all see our papers.
I knew you were going to start singing.
From ending upwardly early. That's what I love about it. I like it. Some little candles here. Setting the mood for a time, right?
That's not a good word.
I love it when my students write. It's awesome. I do that. Yeah, 1 more minute to map, and then you'll have about 3 minutes to do your thesis. So, or you can just be starting your thesis right now. Could you do it? What are the main words? What are the tasks that it's asking? What are your main points going to be? How will you answer your tasks? That's what a map is. Pretty basic. Thesis statement means an argument. Identifying your 2 works in your thesis, identifying your answers, how it fits to the tasks. That's what a thesis is. In a single sentence, can you answer the question?
Yes.
So write it. Justin's about to make you turn in your packets right now just to check that off.
No.
Check it off. 10-minute, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's easy. If you guys are doing it right now, then you should be able to.
Get it out.
We're at.
I should start a blog with you guys. Digital work.
Yeah, I think you should go to
Get a Twitter.
Twitter? What's that?
What?
on Facebook.
Yeah, I think everyone uses Facebook.
I use Twitter.
I do.
I hate Instagram. I mean, it's fun, but I can't use it. I have to like make a picture.
Really fun.
No, but if I want to give information, you know what I mean? Like I have to like take a picture of like hashtag. Oh my god.
Well, then you do Twitter, you can just.
Would you all do Twitter about the same as Instagram? Because that's easy. Because I can connect it so that it automatically pushes to Twitter. I'll do that.
I don't have a Twitter.
2 minutes! Hurry! Get that thesis statement. I want it to be beautiful.
YouTube.
I want it to be beautiful like two women in your paintings. Probably like when you're a French woman. That's what you say to Leonardo DiCaprio. I met him once.
What?
You have to focus against all distractions. Do not listen to Mr. Morris now. Shh, focus.
How did you meet him, Mr. Morris?
Do not talk to me, Dominic. I talk you right.
Already finished.
You do not finish.
I am finished.
Only smart
This is
people.
what Dominic does.
Only
Really
smart.
Because he literally
Only
has nothing
smart-
else to do.
Only smart people can solve that.
Well, that's very insensitive.
Bruh.
What?
All you did,
Super easy.
really, Cassie? All you
Mix
did
it up and
Mix
resolve it.
it up.
Okay,
Dominic does 5 minutes.
Mix it up.
Mr. Morris, then mix it up.
No.
Watch him solve it within a minute.
Mix it up.
Give him the ultimate test and
Yeah,
he shall prove himself.
If you take one of them pieces out or something, it becomes impossible to solve.
Mix it! You're not mixing!
Beautiful. I still don't have a piece of stuff.
Dominic's the smart one here. Let's see. This is the talent show one here.
Do it, Dominic! Show him!
Me and Dominic with the puzzles.
All right,
Show
go
him
for
it don't matter
You
how
have a
many.
minute. 3, 2, 1, go! I thought you said under a minute.
Show
5,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, you can't do that under a minute. Keep going, Dominic. I thought you could do that pretty good. That's pretty amazing. I've never been able to solve anything like that before. I'm not a Rubik's Cube man.
Yes, I have a statement here.
Oh, he's close. He's got all the white there.
And of course, he went with the white first.
Now or later?
I could go for the blue.
White is going to be more easier to do. I use
Yeah,
white.
yeah.
Until then, Tyler broke my Rubik's Cube, and I made him pay for it.
Hurry, Dominic, hurry!
You have a brother?
No, my friend.
Get that Rubik's Cube.
You can,
Rubik's Cube.
don't rush him.
Driving me crazy.
Walk him through the algorithm wrong.
Make me feel stupid and lazy.
Well, you are the one singing and dancing.
Lorraine, shut up. Go away. Don't like
That's so mean.